Welcome back to Everything HR's Culinary Conversations. Today we are welcoming Steven Pursley, chef and owner of Menya Rui, which earned a spot in Yelp's top 100 restaurants. The goal of the Culinary Conversations is to speak with leaders in the restaurant world to discuss the hardships and successes they've overcome in growing their business. Menya Rui, located in Lindenwood Park, area of St. Louis, Missouri, is a Japanese ramen shop renowned for its dedication to authentic, high-quality ramen. This intimate 24-seat eatery focuses on a dine-in only experience, reflecting the casual, communal atmosphere of traditional Japanese ramen shops. Known for its house-made noodles, rich broths, and specialty dishes like tsukumen and mazemen, Menya Rui has earned accolades, including being named one of Top's Yelp 100 U.S. restaurants in 2023, with a commitment to craftsmanship and authenticity. All right, how are you doing today, Steven?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here. I'd love to know just a little bit more about you. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of what ended up delving into creating Menya Rui.
There's a long story and a short, but still a long story. I don't know. My first job in high school was in a restaurant. My mom's Japanese. I went to university, but didn't really have like a strong career path. So at that point in my life, I decided to go explore my Japanese identity and learn ramen, because throughout college, I thought there weren't a lot of ramen shops in St. Louis or any at all. It was kind of starting to the first boom was happening on the coast. But I thought, if I learned how to make ramen and came back and opened a shop, it could be a good business. So spent 3 years over there, came back, worked a few years around St. Louis, and then in 2022, we opened up. So that's the quick version.
I gotcha. Well, all right. So you went to Japan directly, and then where exactly did you go? Is there like a specific type of kind of ramen that's like location specific? Like, I'm curious about that kind of culture and
so there are a lot of regional styles. It's a really deep rabbit hole if you really go down it as far as the different types of ramen. But I was kind of, like I said, my story was kind of, my mom's Japanese. I grew up in the Midwest, so I wanted to just go spend time over there as an adult. I lived there throughout my childhood on and off, but after becoming an adult, I wanted to go over and experience it and spend, some significant time there. So I just reached out to family, and they're from Okinawa. So that's like the southernmost tiny island way off the mainland of Japan. And they're not necessarily known for ramen, but there are ramen shops. So I hit up my uncle. He's a delivery driver. So along his route, there was one shop that he liked to go to. It's just a mom and pop shop. I think they have about 18 seats. So he agreed to help me at least get a job, if not give me a job. So I ended up working there part-time, and then he connected me to another shop in Okinawa. Between the two shops, I was able to get full-time hours upon my move. But yeah, it was. And the cool thing was it was two different styles. So the first shop was like a shoyu, like a clear chicken. There was some pork in there too, but a clear chicken broth. The other was tonkotsu, the most popular style. So pork bones, boiled hard. You come out with like the creamy, opaque soup. So right off the bat, I got to see multiple styles. It was cool.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so typically these shops, they would have one style and then all the dishes center around it, or is it like one type of bowl and then the toppings are kind of what changes?
So with like ramen, there's really no rules. Generally it'll be like one style, I guess, if you're talking like shoyu, miso, shio, or like the three like seasoning types. And then you have like your broth types too. So it gets a little muddled, but the first shop I worked at, they did shoyu and miso. So they have two, I guess, kind of styles, but they use the same like base soup stock. So you make one soup stock and then you have two seasoning methods. The second shop only had one soup and one seasoning, but usually it won't go too much beyond that, especially for like a small operation.
Okay. Gotcha. And then how did you end up? Did you adopt some of their styles, or did you kind of make your own? What was the dynamic for you actually creating your own shop?
So I spent 2 years in Okinawa. Then the third year, I made like some connections through the work, and I ended up going up to Matsuyama, which is in mainland Japan. And there it was, I think at that time they had 11 stores, but I worked at the flagship in Matsuyama, 20 counter seats. They had 3 noodle dishes on the menu. So regular ramen, a tsukemen, the dip noodle, and then like a abura soba, mazemen, which is like a brothless oiled noodle. And they only had 20 seats, but they were like in a drinking district. So it was high volume, open at 11, close at 2 a.m. So 11 a.m. all the way through to 2 a.m. And they would do anywhere from like 300 to 400 bowls. So it was a turn and burn style. So yeah, over the 3 years, I got to see like the mom and pop, different flavors and different workflows kind of. But when it came to opening my shop, I took from all the experiences and kind of decided that, you can't count on having a line, but I was like, man, I only have 24 seats. So it would be cool if I could be that turn and burn kind of shop. So I kind of had to build the menu to suit that.
Gotcha. I like the way that you say the whole turn and burn kind of way, and then even having that long line outside. I really like when I checked out your website, you have that on your website. Like you say, the average Japanese person finishes their ramen in 5 to 10 minutes. Like if you see a long line outside, don't worry about it. The seats maximum 1 hour. I really like that you let them know ahead of time. Yeah. And even like, on your way in, it's okay to stand in line. Once you come inside, someone will direct you to your seat. And then there's a self-serve, so you grab your own utensils, drinks, stuff like that. So I really like that you actually have that on the very front page of your website. Do you notice, like, does that help, like, when people come in, or is it usually, like, you still have to kind of walk them through the process? And because it's a very unique process. So I feel like people aren't comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix. I've definitely seen on the internet here and there where it's like, oh yeah, their website was great because of, the explanations and whatnot. But, a lot of first time customers, I don't go necessarily, I'll Google a place just to see if they're open, but I'm not necessarily going to click on the website. So, and we don't mind, like you said, it is a unique experience. That's, what also makes us succeed in a way. So I can't hold it against people if they walk in and they're like, what the hell do we do? So we make sure that we train our front of house staff or the door person to, we have like our quick little 2-3 sentence spiel that we can rattle off as soon as they walk in the door to cover most of the bases. So yeah, I'd say it's a mix of some people know, but then if they come back, then they know the drill. So it's always smooth sailing at that point.
Gotcha. And do you notice a lot of people, is it like from a specific community? Is it from all of St. Louis? Do people travel? Like, do you notice like a demographic or a dynamic for like your regulars that show up?
Not really. I mean, I would say we get a good amount of like Asian students. But at any given time, Menya Rui is very diverse, and it's quite beautiful, really, especially in St. Louis where, the racial relations and the demographics are kind of very cliquey. I don't know, that's probably not the right word, but yeah, it does. It's not, people from the coast come to St. Louis and notice how segregated things are. So, there's times where I'll look up and I just see all kinds of people in such a intimate space, and it really makes me happy. So, no, there's not like I'm constantly surprised at who enjoys our food.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome though, to have something that welcomes genuinely everybody, and everyone has that unique experience. Absolutely. Did you take, I know that you said a lot of your travels, like you took everything. So as far as the placement setting and the style of the restaurant itself, did you also take that from the individual restaurants, or was that something that you kind of came up with yourself? What was that process?
It was definitely not taken, but so the first shop I worked at was 18 seats. Second shop, I think, was 18 seats. Then the owner of the second shop had a sister shop, and I think that one was a little bigger, maybe 30. And then, like I said, the last one was 20. And not only the places I worked, but, I would go out and eat ramen on my days off and stuff like that. And they're all kind of in that ballpark. So to me, it's a no-brainer that a ramen shop is going to be like this small, like a sandwich shop that you walk into, and usually you'll take it to go, but they might have a few seats. It's kind of obviously not the same food, but that kind of feeling of that casual pop in, probably by yourself, eat real quick, get the hell out. It's not a place to like sit with a glass of wine or a bottle of wine with your girlfriend for an hour and a half. So just eating ramen in Japan in general, most of the time it's going to look like that. So to me, I didn't want to have a 4,000 square foot space with a soda fountain and this and that. And that felt automatic, the size. And it was kind of a challenge in St. Louis to find something that was suitable. Just on the financial side, I didn't have money to completely build out a space or build a building, obviously. So I needed a second generation restaurant that would house that concept of a less than 30 seat eatery. But yeah, once I found it, I kind of knew.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then would you say that you had like an entrepreneurship spirit before opening the restaurant, or was it kind of, because I feel like opening a restaurant, like you have to have that drive, like you have to want to build something yourself. Like you said that you noticed that there's not a lot of ramen shops in the area, and that kind of, I don't know if it sparked it inside of you, but it's creating something from genuinely nothing. Like it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of money. So I'm curious, what do you think drove you to specifically creating something of your own?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't like the kid that would buy the candy and take it and start selling it out of his backpack. So I would imagine it has been there. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I've always, like, without a doubt had like an entrepreneurial spirit. But yeah, I think it was just kind of following, like I said, the personal side of it, where I wanted to just go to Japan and while I was there, learn something. I don't know. I just stuck with it so long. Like that was 2014. I didn't open until 2022. And even when I moved back, there was like a 3-year gap where I would do pop-ups and things like that just to stay fresh and keep going. I never really made money off of them, but it was just, I guess persistence more than the entrepreneurial spirit.
Gotcha. I mean, persistence is everything, right? It's just not giving up. It's realizing that it's a long path, and just staying open is the success, right? Yeah,
for sure. And, like my parents were always kind of on my ass about it. Like, hey, when are you going to open? When are you going to open? Because like I said, I moved back 2017, didn't open until 2022. And then there was a pandemic in between it all. So, I would do enough pop-ups to kind of stay relevant, so to speak, in the St. Louis scene, and to keep myself fresh while I drag my feet for most of it and kind of look for, I don't know. It was just a process, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't put it down for good, then you're still going. So I was able to, just keep it going until finally everything got to the right place, and it all worked out so far.
Awesome. What was the pop-up scene like? I'm curious, like, because I've heard that a few different times now, that pop-up restaurants is something that semi-works, like whether it be you go to like a bar and you hand out sandwiches kind of thing, or like you work with other organizations and other locations. So what was your pop-up experience kind of like?
So I moved back 2017. I think I tinkered around for a year, just like going to the Asian market or trying to find pork bones or chicken bones. And so it took me about a year to kind of like put together a menu that I wanted to share. And at that time I was working at a brunch spot. So I just asked some of my friends and then coworkers. I think the first one I did like 30. I made 30 bowls, and I made like a little Eventbrite. And that's how I started in my apartment. And then I think I did a few there, got up to maybe 40 or 50 in the apartment. Then I made a friend in the restaurant scene who, their restaurants close on Monday. So he let me pop up on a Monday on their off day, come in, do like a 60 bowl night, and then pack it up and do it again the next time. But yeah, I think I did like maybe 3 or 4 in the apartment, 5 or 6 outside. And then from there, I found my space. But yeah, it wasn't like I wasn't, because I think there's some pop-ups that just want to be a pop-up, and that's fine. Like, you don't want the commitment or the overhead of, being legally obligated to pay rent for 3-5 years. And if you can turn a profit just doing pop-ups, then that's good too. But that wasn't my goal. I wanted to have a ramen shop, a brick and mortar. So I wasn't like as hungry to like, cool, I did a pop-up when I want to do one in 2 weeks. So mine were like once a month or once every couple months. It was just kind of sporadic, but just to kind of keep it going.
Gotcha. And then, so it sounds like you did like a lot of R&D. Is that like kind of not necessarily the focus, but is that like one of the big kind of takeaways from it? Was it like you got feedback from what people thought, you kind of got a better idea of what the supply chain was going to look like for your specific location, and then from there, like that's kind of where you got more comfortable serving more people in this specific location? Because I feel like that's hard to go from Japan to then St. Louis, like completely different dynamic in like the ingredients, the style, the culture, like everything's totally different.
Definitely.
So pop-ups definitely seem smart, even if it's just like R&D, just, what do people like more of? What do people like less of? And like you said, overhead is everything when it comes to, getting priced out of a 3 to 5, year lease, stuff like that. So is that like kind of the big takeaway that you got from it, or what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I guess when I was doing it, I wasn't necessarily, it just felt like that's what I needed to do to keep moving forward. But yeah, looking back, it was all of that, I wasn't sure what style of ramen. Like I said, I had worked in multiple. So shoyu, tonkotsu, I had experiences in a lot of them. But I kind of went with what I like to eat the most. And in St. Louis, there's only tonkotsu. So I was thinking, if there's already tonkotsu, then maybe I should try shoyu to kind of stand out. And I was able to test whether people like shoyu or not, because, it's mind blowing sometimes when you see a restaurant that just opens up and it's like, whoa, you just went for it. Like no runway at all. But yeah, it gave me a couple of years of like, and it was kind of weary in the beginning because, like I said, it was friends and coworkers. So it's like, oh yeah, it was great, dude. And it's like, okay, well, I got to see you tomorrow, so I don't expect you to really say anything else. But once it started growing from like just my immediate circle to the friends of friends and then complete strangers, and I was getting positive reactions, I felt, more confident that, okay, I can do this. But yeah, from the gauging the market and their reactions and how I could source things, and what I was like, man, if I can find what I need retail on the shelf, then I should only have more options once I do get access to the vendors and the JFCs and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that if I could make it work in my apartment off the store shelf, that it would be viable with access to a little bit more. But yeah, that was kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then your current operations, because I'm assuming during the pop-ups it was just a one-man show. Like, were you doing everything during that time frame, or did you actually have help?
I was living with my sister at the time, and she is my right hand now. So I kind of started like training her a bit during the pop-up. She would help me when so I had a noodle machine that I imported from Japan, but it stayed at my parents' house like 45 minutes away. So every time we would do a pop-up, we'd drive out together in the garage, and I would teach her how to make noodles. And then all the other stuff basically I did, but for service, I needed another person to help me. So she would help for service. I would probably quote unquote hire like a waitress or I think we ran like a 4-man crew. So it wasn't just me. Like I said, I think we did 60. I think we got up to like 90 in a night was the most I did for a pop-up, but it would have been a little too much for me to handle all by myself.
Yeah, for sure. 90 would be crazy to do all by yourself. All right. And then what's your current operations look like? How many, what's your staff, front, back end?
So right now we got, I think 7 employees. I would be the 8th. For a service, we run a 4-man crew. usually like a man or woman prep team in the day. But yeah, I like to, it's slim and trim. I like to, and I guess like being small, it's a very fine line between under and overstaffed. But I've gotten to a place recently where I think I'm in a good place. I'm kind of the extra at this point, where if everything's going well to get everyone their hours, I'll work a little less. And then if someone needs off or something happens, then I'm always available to step in. So I think that I've found the sweet spot for now, knock on wood, until, the next person wants to go do something else, or, whatever the case may be. But I like to keep it small, everything small, aim small, miss small.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. And then what was your recruiting process like? Like, how did you end up finding the people? Was it just like job posts? Was it social media?
So mostly social media. Yeah. I've never put anything on, I don't know, what Indeed or any of the other websites. I kind of just probably rely on my Instagram a little too much. But nowadays, our following's grown. So I think the last round I got probably over 30 applications. But when I first opened, I think I got like 3, and I had to just go with one, and it was okay. He lasted for, over a year. So it wasn't all bad, but I think it's kind of been a learning process as far as, I don't know, trusting my gut and doing a little bit better job vetting in the front end to not be frustrated later down the road. Cause it's like, you're frustrated. So you want to hire someone, get someone in there, and you might go against something that your gut's telling you. And then, a month later, you're back in the same boat. So that's been something I'm learning. But yeah, it's mostly through Instagram. I just post on the timeline, and like I said, each time I've gotten a few more hits. So now I can be a little more choosy and selective. But yeah, I think the cool thing about like being on like these Yelp things and things like that is that it definitely helps with attracting talent. And, the more solid of a crew we have, the less I have to worry, and the more I can think about what I can do next.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, definitely a learning curve there. And it sounds like you've got a solid structure. Instagram is really, really unique. I don't know any like traditional business that uses Instagram for recruiting, but I feel like in the restaurant world, it's just kind of another tool to use. And I think that's really, really cool. Like, it's just a really interesting dynamic. Have you ever been like a manager or a leader before this, or like, did you just jump in as an owner?
Yeah, I just jumped in. So I was a line cook at Indo, the last place I was at. I was a server. And then even in Japan, I was never the manager, or the tencho is what they call it. But yeah, I'd never done any of that. So, but I felt, I was a good student, decently, when I wanted to be, especially in high school, because I was living at home and my parents made me. But, college, I had a little freedom. So, and I wasn't passionate about anything, but I was always a good student. I always knew I could learn things. I picked things up well. So I had faith that as long as I wasn't overwhelmed, and that goes back to the keeping things small, where it's like, okay, to start, I had 2 employees. So, it wasn't like I'm managing like a 100-seat restaurant with 30 staff members. Even to this day, I have 7. So I always had kind of a little bit of faith in myself that I would figure it out as I went. And that's been the case. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of learning.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I like to say, like, no one can be an expert at everything. Like, my background is HR and operations, but like, I don't know the actual like front end super well. And then I worked at a Domino's.
Like complete opposite. Like, we're like completely fly by the seat of our pants. We're figuring everything out. I'm HR, I'm payroll, I'm doing everything. So, but like I said, it kind of works for us because it's a 960 square foot building and there's 7 of us. So I don't know. To me, it's like, and I don't know. We've been able to handle it, but as we grow, I think that's going to be another challenge. If I want a second shop, and now I'm 2.5 times the employees, and I have to have a GM at each one, like there's like we're going to outgrow this like kind of freestyle fun structure. Hopefully, if things go the way they go, or the way I hope they go, rather. But and we'll have to figure that out when that time comes. But for now, it's working for the most part.
Yeah, no, I got you. And what are your ideas for the future? Is that like kind of the game plan? Is it opening up a second shop? Is it potentially franchising? Like, what is your like vision for the future?
I mean, I don't have. I think immediately, I'm looking to open a second shop. I want to do the tonkotsu style. So second shop, maybe it's slightly bigger just to give us a little more breathing space and prep space. But I want to do a different style of ramen. So it'll be kind of the same system, but a different flavor in the bowl. So I always compare it to pasta, where right now we do red sauce. So I want to open up like a white sauce pasta shop.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but same quality, same, scratch made everything, but just a different style. So I'm currently looking for a space. I'm not in a rush. Like I said, I'm in a good spot now where I'm not working so much. So it's like kind of hard to convince myself to like get back in there for 80, 90 hours a week. But, when the right building or the right opportunity presents itself, I think we're in a good spot to fire.
I gotcha. That's definitely an interesting mindset there. Like you're in a comfortable space and then the next step forward is going to be that grind.
Yeah.
Like that's really hard.
Yeah. Like I'm like, I don't know. I've been eating good. I'm out of shape right now. And I'm like telling myself like, dude, you need to get in the gym. Like for me to open up another ramen shop, like it's going to be taxing on my body and I am not in physical shape to do it right now, which I think is like, I think I was having that thought and I'm like, that's funny. I don't think a lot of people would actually think about that ever, but like, being in shape, like, but I think I need to like get my ass in the gym and like get in shape to open a ramen shop.
You're right. That's interesting. Like I definitely see it as far as like getting, physically, mentally, spiritually, if that's, your belief there, like, getting everything on track because the next step is going to be really hard. That is really, really interesting.
And I mean, I think ramen compared to other like food genres that I've worked in, it's definitely like a more labor, like elbow grease kind of cuisine. Like we were dealing with 22 quarts of broth. I mean, they're probably 30 pounds or so. And then scooping out the bones out of a 120 quart stock pot. That's like soaking wet. Those bones probably like that trash can that I take out weighs 80 to 100 pounds, I bet. So I'm on my feet. When I opened, I was in there at 8, 9 a.m. and I was working till 11, 12. So, it's like the physical element of it is to not to be overlooked. So yeah, I keep telling myself that, but the couch always draws me in.
Well, that's awesome though that you already see it. Like you see like kind of what the next step is. You understand how hard it is. One, because you've done it before, right? Mm-hmm. And two is like it is kind of something not necessarily new, but it's going to be a new location. It's going to be opening up essentially a second business because you're not going to be able to necessarily take all of the playbook that you currently have and just translate it over because the recipes and because the processes, the size, everything's going to be just a little bit different. So everything has to be kind of like customized. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think that's kind of where, I don't know, there's good and bad in everything. And the positive of doing something different is that I'm not going to like cannibalize myself as much. But then the negative is that like, I'm not going to be able to take something from over here and just take it over there. There's going to be that learning curve and the figuring out the differences and how to navigate them. But, like I said, I think if we execute it, then we've done everything right up to this point to succeed. So we just have to hone in and dial in on a menu. And I think if we can package it and put it in front of the people in a good way, then we're set up for success.
Yeah. And are you looking to have it in St. Louis as well, or are you looking to expand somewhere different?
I'd like to be in St. Louis. I don't want to be too far. I don't know. St. Louis is weird. There's the city and then the county, which I guess every city is like, you're concentrated and then you have the suburbs. So I want to be in the slightly more concentrated area. But I'm open. I don't have like a specific neighborhood in mind where I need to be in the Loop or I need to be in Central West End. to me, I'm looking for the right building and the right bones and the right shell, that I can see it working. And then if the price is right, we'll make it happen. Because when I was looking initially for this one, where I'm at now isn't like it's not a commercial district or like a place where people go to hang out. So we're very much a destination. When people come to Menya Rui, it's because they want to be at Menya Rui. It's not because they were gonna go see a show down the street, because there's no shows down the street. So that might have been kind of scary at that time or going into it. But now that I feel confident that we can attract enough people to pay our bills where we're at now, I'm hoping we can do the same so I can be a little more flexible on my search, where like some people might really have to come out of pocket and pay for that front street spot. But I think I can be a couple streets over and get people there. So that's what I'll do.
Gotcha. What do you think it is that made Menya Rui so special? Because like restaurants are hard. Like it's a tough business. But to be as successful as you guys have gotten in, 2 years of the brick and mortar being open, not counting the pop-up that you did for those years, like what do you think it is that made you as successful as you currently are?
I mean, I would say the best answer or the simplest answer is the value proposition we offer our customers. Like for the price they pay, what they get, I think they win. And that to me always needs to be at the front of our brain. But yeah, like what goes into creating that value proposition is, the quality, the story, the atmosphere, the friendly service. Like there's all those things that go into that. But at the end of the day, more times than not, and hopefully a lot more times than not, are people that come to Menya Rui when they leave, are they happy with the $15, $16, $17 they spent? Or are they like, damn, that was not worth it? So yeah, as long as we get people saying that, yeah, it was worth it and they keep coming back, then that will continue to succeed. But once we start, taking things for granted or not being on our P's and Q's as much, or not respecting people waiting in line and not busting our asses to get them in the door as quickly as possible, then, our lead will start to chip away. So we just have to maintain the lead and keep it at the front of our minds.
Gotcha. Do you think that like that lead that you're talking about, as far as like at restaurants, it's game day every day, right? Like, because it could be their first time coming in to see you, or even their last time, if you don't uphold the standard, like you said, the value proposition that they think is worth it. So how do you make sure that your team is as engaged every time? Like, is it just built into the culture you've developed? Is it you kind of like pushing them? Is it individually, like you just have studs and they're just killing it every day? Like,
I think it's kind of all those things, really. And that's one thing I've learned in the hiring process is like, you can't, like, you kind of know pretty quickly, like who actually cares and who doesn't actually care. So it's like finding those people that like really rock with what we're doing in a way that like makes them care. I mean, and no one's probably going to care as much as me. I mean, I think my sister's probably there. I don't know. Actually, I think they all care a lot. So it's just finding people and like keeping people that care first and foremost about what we're doing, and kind of facilitating their growth, or like listening to what they need, or not taking them for granted and dipping out on vacations. It's like, letting them know that, I'm here with you. I see that you care and I appreciate that you care. I care about your caring. So how can we continue to look out for each other and then turn that around and look out for our customers?
Nice. I like that. I care that you care.
Yeah. But I mean, I've seen it. Like I've had, like I said, we're pretty rock solid right now as far as our crew, but I've definitely had some that have come and gone where, they care for a month, but then it starts to, the true colors start to show, where it's like, hey dude, I told you to do this a certain way. And you did it for the first 3 times, but then now that you're hungover, you know what I mean? It's like, there's no reason why you're not doing it the same anymore. Besides the fact that you don't care, because you know better, because you've done it already. But now you're just ripping the tape instead of cutting the tape because you're too lazy to walk down. Like, what is it? And to me, it's just a lack of caring. And if you don't care here, then you're not going to care in front of the customer. Maybe not every time, but that color will show eventually in front of the customer. And then that's when that's when our lead goes away, is when you let that show in front of them. So I don't know, just kind of being mindful and like paying attention to every aspect of their work. You know, it's not just like everyone wants to go to everyone wants to just work the noodle station. And it's like, how am I going to let you work the noodle station if you can't keep your 3 sink compartment organized? You know, it's like dishes, like, yes, it's dishes, or yes, it's sweeping the floor, but like, I'm watching how you sweep that floor. Because if you don't care about the floor, I can't trust you to care about the next thing. Mm. And to me, that's the minimum. So you should care about all of it, because I did. But anyway, not to be preachy.
No, that's I think that's one of the most important parts. It's a level of quality, right? Because it's like, if you don't allow something to go under that specific level of quality, like, that's what it is. It's that accountability. Like, no, like, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. You either do it the right way or you don't do it at all. So
right.
Like,
to me, that's like a conscious decision. Like, you're making that decision. When you don't get under that cooler all the way with the broom, you're letting yourself be lazy, or you're making that decision. Like, you see it, you know, there's stuff under there, but you're telling yourself it's okay not to do it. And to me, that as you move up on, and I don't know, I guess it's a hierarchy of like, you know, you start on dish, then you might get to go to topping, and then you get the noodle station. But like, if you can't do the dish station, or you can't do the task like sweeping the floor in a way that upholds that quality within yourself, then I can't trust you to like make good decisions when more things are at stake.
yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Honestly, even like big corporations, like big franchises or like independent restaurants that own like a lot of different locations, they have like a very set tier. Like, you focus on one area, and then once you're like extremely proficient and you've mastered this area and you hold the same level of quality every single time, only then do you move to the next stage. So it sounds like you're already doing that, which is awesome. Like, that's exactly the way that it seems like is the most successful, because it's really hard. It's almost like shooting a shotgun, like that giant blast of information. Like, people aren't going to get it. Like, you have to be good at one thing first and then move to the next thing, and then so on and so forth until you kind of learn everything.
For sure. And I think it's like another challenge as far as, like I said, I've never managed. So like, kind of managing people is what I learned, is that you can't really approach everyone the same. Or I think maybe at McDonald's, they're so big, or like, you know, once you get to a certain level, it's kind of like, we have our system and either you fit or you don't. But to me, like in the delicate kind of growth phase we're in now, I'm still piecing together like my core group. And even within that core group, I have I've learned that, you know, maybe with this person being a little more fiery or direct gets them motivated. But with this person, I don't need to do that. And it actually turns them off. I can just talk to them. Like, I can level with them a little bit. So I think kind of realizing that my management style isn't always one size fits all, depending on who's on the other side of the table or whatever. So that's been another thing I've kind of learned.
Yeah, that's unique. That's definitely something that not all leaders learn, and not all leaders kind of take into account, because you really have 2 big styles of leadership when it comes to like that. Like, one is just like you said, you change based off the person you speak to, and the other side is you're who you are, and then they either enjoy that type or they don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, the bigger you are, the more you kind of have to just do one size fits all.
For sure.
But for those small teams, like, having that like personality and having that like knowledge of your team itself, I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah. And I've learned that over, the 2.5 years, because I definitely, in the beginning, I was a little more stressed out. I was a little more, just direct, I think. And then once I saw that it's not necessarily getting me anywhere, it's like, okay, I got to kind of pivot a little bit. And I think, and it's going to be another pivot maybe as we grow, because right now, like, I know everyone that I work with, or I know all my employees. Like, I've worked side by side with them, but how is that going to work whenever I'm not even hiring this? Like, say we were at a third shop and I've gotten to 3 shops, and now I'm not even hiring the people that work for me. Like, I am not going to have that personal connection with them. So it's going to pivot again, I think, to maybe a more one size fits all, hopefully. But yeah, I'll have to just keep that in mind and stay with the times.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really interesting thing about scaling, I think, which I really like. I think that HR is scaling, like, because it's really just, how are you managing your team? Like, how are you handling payroll to make sure that everyone is supported? How are you listening to them with the employee relations? How are you holding them accountable? How are you training and developing? What's the recruiting style? Like, that's literally just HR, and that's all that scaling is. And I think a really cool thing is whenever you can keep the personality of the leader while still implementing, like, the scalability. And that really comes down to, like, one is hiring. So, like, picking the right people, like you said, general managers, because you can't be everywhere at once. As much as we might want to, those 90-hour work weeks don't last forever.
Right, definitely.
So having that, like, understanding that, I can't be everywhere all the time. So having a general manager that has, like, that level of accountability, that level of structure, and also they have the tools they need, right? So, like, having that cookbook. And actually, I'm curious, how do you guys handle that? Like, as far as your recipes, as far as, like, the stuff that, kind of you create, like, are you changing it often, or is it like one firm kind of cookbook that people can kind of just practice and redo?
Yeah, so everyone has their own notebook. So then when I feel comfortable to share, then they'll learn a new recipe and they'll write it down. But yeah, we don't really change anything, and ideally we won't, because I guess it's, like, kind of a weird maybe difference between, like, the American food culture and Japanese food culture. Like, in Japan, a successful ramen shop, you think of it and it's like they're just doing the same thing for the most part. Yeah, like, they might have a seasonal, like a summer, so they do, like, a cold ramen. But for the most part, like, you count on your favorite ramen shop to be the same ramen shop every time. So, like, ideally, I'm never going to have to change the menu. But I think on, like, the American culinary scene, it's like, oh, food and wine best to chef. Like, we want to see what chef can do. What's chef going to do next? And it's like, I want to be fucking Subway, where you come and you get the same damn sandwich every single day. Like, I want the same bowl of noodles every day. So I don't want to change anything. That being said, now I want to do a second shop, so that'll be a whole new menu. So I'll have to, like, get in my bag a little bit there. But, like, I want Menya Rui to be Menya Rui every single time. Just the same 6 bowls, and you're there because you want one of the 6. Like, it's a different style of eating, I guess. But yeah, it's the consistent thing for me. Like, and I think we're in that price range. Our bowls range from 13 to 15. So it's a fast, quick, comforting, reliable meal that you're going to spend this dollar amount and get this level of satisfaction. So I just don't want to mess with it.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I really, really like the dynamic that you have. I think that for St. Louis itself, it is extremely unique. I really like the culture difference there. Like you said, I 100% agree with you. I think that, like, when it comes to French cuisine and, like, different styles, like, the American, like, fine dining idea, like, it is very much, we'll change every day or every week, or we'll constantly innovate and make new things, as opposed to, we made something that is very, very good, and people will keep coming back because they want that good thing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm biased, but it's like, good luck. Like, good luck making money for any sustained period when you have to change every day, every week. It's like, and then on top of that, the person your staff's gonna, like, I don't know. I would never want to do it. So I don't envy them, but good, shout out and good luck to those that do.
Gotcha. If there was one trick, one tip, one piece of advice that you would give to anyone either just starting out in the restaurant, entrepreneurship style, or who's been in it for a while, what would you recommend to them?
Oh, that's hard. I guess for me, what has worked is like specialization. And, like I said, if you want to be a fine dining chef and you want to be a jack of all trades, then like that is going to be a different route. But for me, like, I think what has worked is like finding an everyday food that I can specialize in and really hammering away at it for a long time. So I would say be persistent and try to specialize if that sounds fun for you. But it's like I'm not bashing fine dining, by the way. And it's like it takes incredible work and talent to like work in those spaces and discipline. So, but to me, that's just like I know that that's not what I want to do. With like the bear and stuff, I think it's kind of romanticized a bit. So it's like, and those restaurants are hard to like turn a profit. So my relationship with food is I didn't grow up eating at fine dining restaurants. So that was never even on my radar, but, I'm not here to bash it, but to me, my idea of food is like an everyday thing. So I wanted to provide something that someone could come to without saving up for a month or, without thinking about it twice. I've gone off on a tangent here, but yeah, stick with it. Find something that you like to do and stick with it, I guess is the best way to put it.
Awesome. I love it. Where can people find you?
On Instagram at Menya _ or Menya Rui _STL, I think is what it is. But yeah, hit us up there.
Awesome. All right. Well, Steven, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I think a lot of great information. And if you liked the show, thank you so much. If you stuck with us this long, I truly appreciate it. And if you're feeling a little crazy, maybe share it with someone.